Okay, for right now, this is kind of on pause. The windshield did come in, but I need to sandblast in here, which means I got to fix my air compressor, get the sandblaster out, take all that apart. For right now, though, I don't have the money to be putting all that in right now, so we're gonna just pause that for a minute, and I'm gonna move on to this, because a lot of people have been asking about this car, and this is my daily driver. That's my dad's, this was mine. I've driven this thing for all of its miles, honestly. I think it had about, I want to say it had about 120, 130 when I picked it up. It was $700 when I bought it, completely bone stock, had a really crappy single stage paint job on it, but underneath was super, super clean, and that's why I wanted it. I had a yellow one for a little while. I regret it because I traded an EG for the first one that I had, and it was actually really rusty and a horrible deal overall. But I had so many things for it that I wanted to kind of stick with that platform. So I ended up looking around for this, and it popped up for $700. It had a blown clutch in it. It was sort of drivable, but honestly, it slipped anything over like 1,000 RPM. So it was basically just rev matching to change any of the gears. So I picked it up. It was, I think it was about 2 hours, 3 hours away from me. So we went there, put plates off the other car on it, and bump starting it at almost every stoplight. I drove it back the whole way in the middle of the night. I made it all the way back, and we decided to put a clutch in it. And sure enough, my $700 car ended up snowballing, because the day we put the clutch in it was the day I was driving home. I made it about half an hour, on top of driving it 3 hours before we put the clutch on it. I drove it another half an hour, and it decided to just suddenly skip timing. Don't know why, but it decided to just skip like 1 or 2 teeth. And then it shut off when I was driving. I started it back up, had no check engine light, and then a few minutes later it shut off and wouldn't start. It had no crank, nothing. What had happened was it shredded the top cams and melted everything together essentially in the top end and seized up the motor from turning over at all. It was a really weird situation. I never really investigated why it did it, but we ended up scurrying around that week. I found another A3 to slap into it. I actually ended up finding a very low miles, 100,000 kilometer ish A3 that actually had paperwork from Honda. It was a warranty motor, so it was literally brand new from Honda. So we slapped that in there, pulled the brand new clutch and transmission back out again, and put the motor, transmission, everything back into the car and certified it. And that was, I want to say 8 years ago now. And I've had no real reason to rip the motor back out of this car, because it's just been super, super reliable. Again, it's a daily driver, not a race car or project. Well, it wasn't supposed to be a project, obviously, but as you can see from what I have around here, I can't keep my hands off of modifying anything. So this ended up slowly being a sense of anything that broke got aftermarket. So over time, suspension was bouncy as all can be. It was blowing the lower control arm bushings out in no time. The front suspension was so bouncy on it after a while. So it ended up getting a set of coilovers. It got control arms, brakes, everything. I think I've put 3 sets of brakes on the damn thing over the years. I didn't really keep up on the maintenance enough to tell you exactly how many oil changes have been, but I know it's definitely been a lot, because I've actually changed the oil pretty often on this thing and kept synthetic in it because that motor was so low miles, and it could be half the reason it's so reliable. This car has been on road trips all over Ontario, one corner of Ontario to the other. I've taken it to Montreal several times. I've taken it to Toronto 100 times. I know for a fact I can jump in this car almost any day of the week, turn the key, and drive almost anywhere with it. And that's what I like about it. And that kind of leads me into like talking about the tires and stuff. A lot of people complain about how big the tires are. They're stretched, but they are big. They're 185/60s, which is a tall tire, and it's not slammed anymore. There was a point where this car was right dumped to the ground. I had 17s on it, I think, And I don't know if I have photos of it when it was dumped, but when I first lowered it, it did have 17s on it. I ended up going with 15s because I had 15-inch Steelies with good tires off of Izzy's old Aveo. And I just needed tires, so I bolted them on one day and I actually kind of liked it, and then ordered tires for the Steelies. So that's how I ended up getting back down to 15s. And then I came across these from Lewis, who has his own YouTube channel, which shout out to Lewis for when I needed another set of tires years later. These were on his 8.6 that he was drifting with, and I knew that they look perfect on this car. So I kind of begged and begged them for a while, and then finally he let them go and they came into my hands. They're actually in really good shape aside from one rim having a little nick out of it. But anyways, so that's how I ended up getting on the 15s, and then I just stuck with 15s the whole time, which is fine with the small brakes and the 4-bolt. If I went 5-bolt and upgraded the brakes, it'd be different. But anyways, I'm rambling on, but the whole point of running the tire size that I have on it right now is for drivability. Having this tall of a tire and this soft of a tire on it, this car drives pretty much like stock going down the road. You barely feel any bumps aside from like obviously big dips in the road and stuff like any coilovers. But realistically, on a decent road, this thing drives beautifully. Like there's a lot of, like every car here pretty much has coilovers on it. The Miata rides like ass because it's got full solid bushings and coilovers all around it. It's great for the track, but when you're on long drives, this is way better. So it's got full coilovers on it. It's got buddy clubs in the back. It had buddy clubs in the front. And then I came across these Megan set. I don't have a photo or any video of it, but it's got straight arms on it. So basically the tie rods sit like that when you slam these cars. So they're Megan and maybe a couple other brands, but not many, actually make a bottom of a strut that actually moves it up so the tie rods stay straight all the time. So I ended up switching the fronts out for Megan just so I can have better tie rod angle because it did have a good amount of bump steer. You can run inverted tie rods on these, but I figured that was a more solid solution to it, having the whole strut designed to have it instead of having a tie rod that essentially isn't designed to work the way that people run them. Plus it's not super slammed, so that's the reason that I'm running 2 mixed match coilovers on it. And the height's a little high on the back because I did lower the front like a little bit recently because it looked really weird. But anyways, it looks fine how it is, and it's going to stay how it is for now. And then on top of that, I have stock calipers all the way around, but I do have slotted rotors. I didn't want drilled and slotted because I like the way that the slotted rotors look. I've had these slotted rotors on here for about 4 years now. I've went through a few sets of pads, and these aren't even like slightly warped. So these rotors have been pretty good. I don't remember what brand they are. They're a local brand out of Mississauga that makes rotors for everything. So when I contacted them, they actually asked me if I wanted them drilled, slotted, or just normal. So I actually got the opportunity to say I just wanted slotted rotors, which is super awesome. So I have those rotors, and then I have just basic CarQuest pads on it right now because it's daily driver. And then I've got their Rota Grid style MST rims. And then I've got my Goth Girl lug nuts that are actually actual iron lug nuts that are 17 mils, and then the studs, or the spikes, just thread onto them. But they look really good with Diamond Steelies. They honestly look equally as good with the rims that are on it now. Oh, the rims are 15x8 with 0 offset, running a 185 60/15. So she's got a little bit of a stretch to it, but like I said, I was going for having enough tire that when I hit bumps, I don't feel it so much in the wheel. If I was running a low profile tire, I'd probably feel everything because of the coilovers and whatnot. Now we move on to the interior. This is the most preferred part of all of it, in my opinion, because if you're daily driving this car for hours and hours on ends, you obviously want the interior to be comfortable to some point. So I've done some weird things here. Well, some different things, I should say. First of all, that's not the right steering wheel to this car. The right steering wheel is a tiny 14-inch wood grain NRG it's actually on the Miata right now. Miata has no power steering, so a smaller wheel actually helps with the lack of power steering. Not that the Miata is heavy or anything, it's what we've been driving lately, and the smaller steering wheel works better for it. This is actually off the BMW drift car, and the reason it's on here is because the other wheel that I had hit the turn signal stalks. So I needed a deep dish with that slim hub just to clear. It's a long story, but basically this is the wheel. It's just on it for driving it right now. It's not a bad wheel or anything. It's just the horn doesn't fit and it's sunken in kind of weird. So the main things I've done here is it's got the Type R cluster in it, which I like a lot more because it's just kilometers per hour. The red line's a lot higher than what the ECU set to right now stock, but it's a nicer cluster. The only issue I really have with it is it doesn't dim the lights. So these lights in here don't really work when that one's plugged in because power goes through the Canadian cluster and then the cluster dims and dims these ones. So I assume the JDM one's wired differently for the backlight. So the backlight works in the cluster, it's just I lost lights in here, but that's fine. That's not a big deal at all. Then I have just a basic Clarion doubled in deck in here that I have, I actually found a cover that fits in here really nice and makes it look really good. Shout out to Jonathan for that one. And then there's the hybrid short shifter in here, which I made a video on a while back, but YouTube kind of screwed it up a bit. If you really want to dig for it, it's back a few videos and the audio is really screwy in it. But it's out there. So I ended up doing the hybrid short shifter and I did solid shifter bushings on the transmission as well. Another shout out to Jonathan because he sold me that as well. And then I just have a Garage 16 weighted shift knob, just basically no name on it. It's nice, clean, black knob that's weighted. So that's all I wanted. I didn't want anything fancy or anything crazy. And then as far as the rest of the interior goes, I painted the center console black. I painted all the door arm or the door grabs black. I left the handle silver because it would wear out over time. So the factory silver or factory plastic color is perfectly fine for that. And then I have a wink mirror. It's kind of nice for highway driving. There's no real like blind spots with it. I ended up picking it up real cheap. And I think this panel, I ended up actually making myself when I worked at Speedy Auto Glass for a while. So that one was cracked, so that's why I got it so cheap. And it just kind of, I made little brackets at Home Depot out of it, nothing special. So it's kind of nice to have there, and it's just kind of always been there. So I'm going to leave it. Plus with the sun strip that I have on it, it just kind of all works together. Not many people notice this, but all my pillar trim and the headliner are all black, which I absolutely love. Back when I got this car, the sunroof opened, but got stuck open one time. And I had to like force it shut. So for the first 3 years I had this car, I was scared to even open that sunroof. And then when we painted the car, I ripped apart that yellow car when we painted the car and ripped the sunroof out of it. And I had to pull all the trim out, the whole headliner out, and then unbolt the whole sunroof assembly, balance it on my head, and bolt the new one in, and then put everything back. So while it was out, I ended up just painting everything. And I don't regret it in any which way. For driving this car every day, having all this black instead of that off-color smoker yellow is unbelievably transformative. Like, it just made this car so much better. And like I said, if you're daily driving a car, you want to be comfortable in it for all the time, especially if you're spending like half your day in it. And then back here, there's nothing super special going on. I got a C-pillar bar. It's actually out of an EK Civic. Lined up pretty much perfectly. I think it's pretty far on its threads, but it fit. I think I got that for free out of a scrapyard or with a deal or something, so I just put it in. I don't know if it really does a whole lot that high up. Then I have an actual strut bar down here that I think that does something, at least, having the struts bolted together like that. And then my subwoofer setup is not as fancy as my dad's. It's just a single channel amp and then a big subwoofer. But I got the box for free, and I think I paid 20 bucks for the speaker, and I don't know where the amp came from. So long ago, I don't remember. So this whole setup's actually unbelievably cheap, and the car came wired with the sub wires already, so they already ran underneath the carpet and the seats. So ultimately the subwoofer setup, as far as I can remember, is like 20 bucks, but it takes up a lot of room, obviously, and it's not as clean as what Dad's is. So someday I aspire to build something like Dad's where it's in the spare tire well and doesn't take up any room, but for right now it works. One other thing that's kind of like father like son, I guess you could say, is so he's got Integra seats in his Civic, in his 95 Civic. So what I ended up getting, ironically, because it has more cushion and they fit a lot better, is basically Integra seats. They're RSX seats, but nobody wants black cloth RSX stuff. So it was super cheap. I think I paid $100 for both of these seats. Way better cushion than the stock ones, and they're skinnier and just fit you better. Like they actually wrap around you a little bit better. Plus they bolt right in. You have to auger the back hole a little bit to get the fourth bolt in, but other than that, bolt right in. They might not be racing seats or anything crazy. They're just nice daily drivable seats. When I got this car, I winter drove it every year. Winter drove it for a while, and then God knows how long the previous owner winter drove it. And there was a little bit of rust like any other Honda starting down in here. So what I originally did when I started running wider tires before I painted it, this car looked pretty ratty for a while, was I actually rolled the fenders. So they're actually rolled and seam sealed and then undercoated profusely. And then when we painted it, actually, I'll tell you the other reason why we painted it. Number one was it was keyed from here all the way to that taillight, which I didn't know when I bought it. I went to the car wash. As soon as I brought it out in light and it was clean, I realized it was keyed front to back. The reason was this side was hit really good. Some guy decided that him turning at a red light overtook my advanced left, apparently, a set of lights. So I was going through an advanced left, and he decided to turn right, come in the other direction, and drove straight into me. And luckily, everybody sided with me, but I didn't have full coverage on the car, so they couldn't cover it. But I'm pretty sure it screwed that guy over to some extent. He was right pissed when he literally was the one that drove into me. But nonetheless, it folded this whole fender right in here and smashed the back out of the old headlight, which is also another reason why I have upgraded to these depot headlights. This is the style that's on the 04 and 05s, even though this is a 2002. So I had to do a little bit of rewiring to get the lights to work, but all in all, they look way better, and those projectors are absolutely amazing. Original hood that I had on it was starting to rust, so I actually had a hood bra on it, and it's actually kind of cool. If I can find any videos on it or the ad, this car was actually, back when it was stock, used for an Amazon ad for a hood bra that they custom made for this car and then started selling. So it wasn't the prettiest car, so they didn't really use it a whole lot once other people bought them, but it was super cool that when I tried to inquire about it, they basically offered to make one. So I'll see if I can find the ad or whatever and put that somewhere on the screen. But that's always cool that this once had a hood bra that was made for this car just to hide some rust. And then I ended up, when I got to the carbon fiber hood, it had a rip in it because where the rust was starting to cut through the hood bra, unfortunately. And it got frozen real bad when I left it outside one winter. But it is what it is. So I ended up selling it with a bunch of other parts, and some guy wanted it, so he said he's going to sew it back together, so I sold it, which I kind of regret in hindsight because it was technically the first one from that company. But yeah, it's so that hood, that fender, the key down the side, the fact that it was single stage paint, and that the bumper had to be replaced, I decided that I just kind of wanted to paint the whole car. Plus I had these side skirts off of my yellow one that were black, so I wanted to put side skirts on it. Bumper was skimmed with a whole bunch of Bondo. I think it's still on Marketplace somewhere, so I'm trying to sell that bumper for like $100, which is just ridiculous. I ended up finding this bumper. It was white, but I found it on Marketplace, and it actually, somebody already, you can see it's kind of cracking a little bit, but it has a side marker here from factory, and the side markers were already deleted on it. They weren't deleted that great, but they were deleted. So I really like this bumper, and it had that lip on it already. I put the lip on in a better way, and I originally fixed it. That lip's actually carbon fiber, and I fiberglassed a lot of it back together. I just didn't like the idea of having a carbon fiber lip, color match bumper, and then a carbon fiber hood. To me, that looks weird, so I like it all just being one color. Kind of, I know a lot of people like to just clear coat carbon fiber and show it off, but I don't really care for the lip. It just looks really weird if it was carbon fiber. But that, and then I had those side skirts. Side skirts are totally destroyed. I will get into that at some point in the video, but don't even look at those side skirts. Like, they should just be blurred out completely. Between all that and just the general fact of that single stage was fading. Oh, I also got this wing around there too. I think I just rattle canned it originally, so it never really lined up with the car. So I just wanted the whole thing painted. And then this also happened. So the reason that this diffuser originally came to be was that the paint was actually flaking off the back bumper. I don't know if somebody had hit it and cracked the paint or what, but an actual big chunk of it had flaked off. And it was a silver bumper that they single staged on top of, and they basically just barely prepped it before single staging it. So you could actually see the two colors of silver underneath it, which was really annoying. So I bought this diffuser to just see what it would look like off eBay, and it came bent. And then I complained to the eBay seller, and instead of responding, saying anything, they just sent all the money back. So I got this for free, and I bent it back straight and installed it. So for free, I was like, whatever, it's no harm to me. So I ended up cutting out where all the paint defects were and putting that on top to stop the paint from peeling. And then when it came time to paint the car again, I kind of had to keep it because the holes were there. I also cut the bottom out of the bumper, which I like the look of that a lot more. I was going to do the whole brace thing that every Honda does across the bottom, because you'd be able to see it. I used to have one brace under there, but back roads driving, I ended up actually ripping it off, which is a miracle I didn't rip the chassis apart when that bar snapped off there. But eventually I'll do the lower control arms and the ASR brace and all that normal Honda stuff that everyone does. The one other thing that no other Honda EP3 has is there's no Honda logo back here. And I'm quite happy about that. So when I was about to paint it, I sanded it down and I cut the actual Honda like piece that's actually like molded into that for the Honda logo. And I cut it out and fiberglassed it right out to give it that full shaved look. I'm going to eventually delete that wiper. Scotty actually, we found this glass in a scrapyard on a red one, and the glass broke out when I slammed it one time. So Scotty replaced the glass for me, and I didn't want to put the wiper back because it scratches. You can kind of see a little bit of scratch there, but I was kind of on the fence if I should put the wiper back at all, but I don't really drive it in the snow or anything anymore, so I'm going to delete that wiper altogether. But I always like that it's just completely shaved now, and even if you took the Honda logo off of a stock one, you would still have the outline there, and mine doesn't. So to me, that's just something really original and really nice with the back of this car. As it is for exhaust, it's nothing super special. It's a K-tuned downpipe that's running into a catless midpipe and then running into a cat back with a MagnaFlow resonator and a Megan muffler. I like the looks of it because it has an OEM look to it. And the hole kind of makes sense with all the other holes in the back of it. But it's basically a Megan pipe that kind of got cut up to delete the cat. And I changed the Megan resonator because it started, the inside of it broke away and was rattling. So it's still technically a full Megan exhaust with a MagnaFlow resonator in it now. It sounds good. It doesn't really have a rasp. It has a little bit of a Honda rasp in it at certain points, but I think that's because there's no cat in it. If I put a cat back in it, that rasp would go away. It's completely badgeless grill. It was on the car when I bought it, but on Amazon, the stupid things are like over $100. So I always forget that that's not an original grill. So again, the front end looks completely shaved as well, which is awesome. The fog lights too, they're just Amazon fog light setup with an OEM style button and just some LEDs in it. I need to repaint that centerpiece because it was never prepped properly, and I just kind of painted it black one day. So I'm gonna put the plate back on it eventually too, because I'm sick of getting pulled over for it. Under here is nothing super special. I have the later model cover that just covers the throttle body, like the plastic cover that I found at a scrapyard and basically just took for free. It's got a Hasport motor mounts, solid motor mounts all the way around, which is kind of annoying, but this hydraulic mount kept blowing out on me. I think I put 2 of them in there. Finally put a solid mount in it just so it would stop blowing out. And even then, I think it's starting to kind of see the end of its days. Like I said, it's got a solid shifter bushings in it, which you can't really see because everything's in the way. And then it's got a factory strut brace down there, and then we have an aftermarket strut brace up here that matches the back one. And then I do still have all the AC components, but the condenser is, when I try to recharge it, the condenser leaks. So eventually I want to take the front end off and try to change the front condenser and get AC working in it again. Because realistically, everything works in this car. Cruise control, all that stuff. Only thing that's really not working is AC. I've never had AC working, and for the long road trips, it'd be super cool to have AC again. So that's kind of what one of my next big goals is going to be. The intake is actually off of the Subaru that I had that a tree fell on, unfortunately. I know Ethan will probably recognize that intake because it's actually technically think it's a Cobb intake. I don't remember, but some Subaru company intake with way too big of a filter for this car. But that elbow works pretty much perfectly, and everything just kind of lines up there. And it doesn't, a lot of cold air intakes put the filter way back there, which is right beside the exhaust manifold. And I feel like having the intake up here a little bit, it's not doing a whole lot, but it's still at least not as hot up here as it would be if it was back there. But it sounds cool and it works good, so I've just kind of left it be. But yeah, nothing super special under here. Stock A3, stock style Exetti clutch in it, but looking back on it, I wish I put a lighter flywheel in it. If I ever have it back apart, one of the main things I want to do is a lighter flywheel. This flywheel is really good for daily driving, but it'd be really cool if I had a lighter flywheel just to rev it a little bit faster. Carbon fiber hood that I only paid like $300 for. I ended up putting these little Amazon like low profile latches on it on both sides. It still has a safety latch in the middle, but when I use the stock latch, it would flutter in the corners, so I didn't like that on the highway. So what I did was I lowered the middle latch down just enough that it catches in the safety one, but it also catches up there. So even though you pop those two latches, you still have to undo the safety one, which I like, because if we ever go out on the track and for some reason I did forget to click those down or something, the factory safety latch is still there to save the hood from flying open, which in my opinion, I think a lot more people should do that. You should probably put like a safety latch on it anyways, even if you have a really good latch system. But whether you're here for the restoration of the EG project or the E46, which not many people really care about at all, it seems, there will be more drifting content. I promise there will be next year. I just can't afford events on top of everything else. 240, don't know what's going to happen yet. The Miata is kind of in a spot where it's just going to stay how it is, but there will be more Miata stuff next year for sure. I'm not 100% sure what all I want to do with it, but stuff will be done. The 8.6, there will be a video before winter on that 8.6. I need to pull it out, and there's a bunch of things I need to like bolt onto it and get it ready. So whether you're here for any of that stuff, I've got lots of cars and I have lots of means to make content. So comment below what you want to see, what you want to see me do. And honestly, just subscribe and come hang out, because one way or another, I'm going to post the videos whether people watch them or not. But I hope that you guys stick around and watch them, because I really enjoy that people are actually enjoying my content and the stupid things that I'm doing in the backyard. I'm hoping to get better and better. Already, I got my air compressor working and I just bought a sandblaster gun. So I'm just going to try to get myself better at doing things and learn along the way. And if anybody wants to tag along and learn themselves from what I've learned and see my mistakes and see what I learn, and I'm just rambling on again, but if you want to stick around and check it all out, like, subscribe, comment, because the comments really help with the algorithm. The likes really help as well. And hell, if you really want to, share it with your friends and see some of the stuff that I do. But yeah, that's all for now, and thanks a lot for watching and everything, and I appreciate everybody that has been here for the last month or so. It's awesome seeing the YouTube channel almost double in size, so I'm just going to keep on doing what I can do until winter comes.